The Department of Hawaiian Homelands is tasked with getting Native Hawaiians onto homestead lots, but the effort is slow going, with tens of thousands of beneficiaries on the waiting list, some who have been registered for decades. One idea floated this year as a way to generate revenue for the agency is a controversial proposal to build a casino on trust land in Kapolei. We'll hear from both sides on the issue. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Yanji Denise. In 1921, President Warren Harding signed the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. The legislation was spearheaded by Prince Jono Kuhio Kalaniʻanaʻole. It set aside some 200,000 acres across the islands to establish a program to return Native Hawaiians to the land. Parcels are granted by the state-run Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and to qualify for a 99-year lease, Native Hawaiians must have at least 50% Hawaiian blood. But the process has been inefficient, with beneficiaries sometimes waiting decades, even dying while on the wait list. Our panel tonight will discuss the various ideas being floated to generate funding to whittle down that backlog. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email, call, or tweet your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and on the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. Now to our guest. Democratic Senator Maile Shimabukuro represents District 21, which covers Kalaeloa to Kaena Point in West Oʻahu. She's been the chair of the Hawaiian Affairs Committee since 2013. Republican Senator Kurt Favela represents District 19, which includes community in Ewa Beach, Ewa by Gentry, and Iroquois Point. He's also a member of the Hawaiian Affairs Committee. Tyler Gomes was appointed by Governor David Ige as deputy to the Department of Hawaiian Homelands chairman. He has a Juris Doctorate degree and a certificate in Native Hawaiian law from the William S. Richardson School of Law. Mokihana Wa'a Komoda is a Hawaiian Homelands beneficiary. She currently resides in Ka'ulu Lokaha'i Homestead in East Kapolei. And Anthony Makana Paris is also a homestead beneficiary, and he's the president of the Prince Kuhio Hawaiian Civic Club. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Mr. Gomes, I want to start with you. Can you tell us about the sources of DHHL funding right now and why you thought this proposal was necessary at this point?
Sure, and thank you so much for having us. It's an important discussion to have. So in large part, the department relies on funding from the legislature and the governor through his budget to make it all happen. We additionally rely on leasing some of our lands out for commercial uses in order to generate revenue. And that's not a huge income generator for the department. At best, maybe we make $20 million a year off of our commercial leases, but in this pandemic, we've seen nearly a 50% drop in income. And so knowing that that's unlikely to reverse and change right away, that shortcoming, and then addressing the fact that there really has been 100-year insufficiency of funding since the inception of the act itself, those two reasons are super compelling for why we needed to think outside of the box and why we came up with this idea in the first place.
Senator Shimabukuro, today you recommended that the Hawaiian Affairs Committee defer the Senate bill indefinitely. Does that mean that this legislation is essentially dead? What happens to it now?
Yes, it's technically still alive for another year for next session, but for all intents and purposes, when you defer something indefinitely, it means it's basically going to die, and that if the proponents want to come back again, the better course is just introduce a new bill in January.
What's your
so yeah, the votes just weren't there.
What's your view on the proposal overall?
What made me support the initial proposal was that the Hawaiian Homes Commission supported it. It was 5-9. It was a narrow vote, but I really support self-determination for beneficiaries and homesteaders. And then, when Senator De La Cruz proposed amendments, then I really felt that even more so, gave them self-determination, because the proposed Senate Draft 1 would have not required a casino. Instead, it would have given the power to the Hawaiian Homes Commission to decide for themselves whether or not they want gaming, and if so, what form. It could be anything from a horse race to bingo to lottery to, anything like that, any range of things. And they had to decide by a supermajority, and they had 5 years to do beneficiary consultation in the meantime. And so I thought that was really a brilliant, suggestion to amend the bill to improve it even more so.
Senator Favela, I know that you're on record as being against a casino. What's your take on all of this?
Well, from the beginning, I think, community members and beneficiaries felt that the whole thing was flawed from the beginning. They gave the commissioners a few days to make a decision that would affect the whole state of Hawaii, not just the Hawaiians, the Hawaiian homestead, not putting them on homes where they belong, and they should be, but giving somebody 3 or 4 days a bill or a future bill to have and decide where everyone on the beneficiary list and the rest of the people of the state of Hawaii. I didn't think that was long enough. I don't think they had talked to the right people. They said they talked to the governor, but when I talked to the governor after he came off the news and said he was against it, then when I called the deputy chief, John, nobody talked to them. But then I talked to my friends who was at Kaya Mohala and Queens Hospital and Straub, all the psychologists that have an impact on illegal and sports gambling in Hawaii. So I just felt that if this dialogue was open, I know we're talking about the pandemic, but it was really open and said, the commissioners, you guys go, while we do the consultation with the beneficiaries, you guys have a month or two to decide and then we'll vote. But it was too rushed. The process was too quick and they were trying to just really rush this thing. And I don't know what was the rush, because it's going to impact not just the people on Hawaiian homeland, it's going to impact the whole state of Hawaii. And that's the reason why I was adamant in doing what I did.
So is your opposition then to the way the process went, or is it to gambling on the whole?
Gambling in a whole, because they didn't ask the right people before going in and making a decision. Because the area that they're talking about, regardless if it's they saying commercial or not, in the Kapolei region, the pictures that we've seen, and not definitely, is close to our Verona Village. And Verona Village is a family plantation camp. So is our historical train track. So Kamakana Ali was supposed to be the new apple pie of raising money for the homestead. But we don't know. I don't know how much money they raised, but I know the people that was renting from Kamakana Ali, they had to pay the rent. So I don't know how Kamakana Ali wasn't making the money that they make, because they get on set lease rent and everybody had to pay their part, regardless if your store was open or not. So those are the things that was promised. Kamakana Ali was going to be the reason why they gave him a long lease to go ahead and raise money to build Hawaiian homes. That was the one. So that's the reason why I cannot support any gaming or any kind of gambling in Hawaii, because that's not the right way to go. There's a better way that we can do things.
Mrs. Wa'akamora, I know that you hold a similar view. What's your opposition to gaming in Hawaii?
So for me, mine is a little personal. I actually grew up in my early years in a home with a gambling father. And, there was a lot of anger, domestic violence, poverty, unhappiness. And I'm not saying that the gambling was the total cause of it, but the gambling was a big cause of the problems that I grew up with. In fact, I have a cat that's the same age as me. There was a music box in the back, and my mother would use that cat actually to hide money in there, so that that's the only place he never checked to look at for money. And a lot of times there was no money for food. My mom would have to do her best to make ends meet. And so I grew up with that. And so for me, when the landlord comes to the house asking, where's the rent money? There is none. My siblings and I, we learned to eat gravy and bread a lot. That was my mom's means of feeding all of her children, because on many occasions, my father would just gamble away his whole money. I remember her selling items from our house, trying to get money to bail him out one time because he had gone to jail. So I just have bad memories about gambling. I don't advocate for it. I totally oppose it. And then the other reason was because it was going to be too close to my neighborhood where I live. And we have a lot of children, a lot of women, a lot of families in this area. I was thinking about the criminal impact. What would that be to us so close? And one of my neighbors up the road, he's a prison guard. He said, when get gambling casino, when they're gonna need money after that, they're going straight to our neighborhood because we're the closest residential area. That's too much to gamble on. I mean, I cannot take that chances. We're talking about, I heard 40 years for a license. That's too long. I'm not gonna be here, by then. But what will my mo'opuna gotta face, at that time? There's just too much, there's just too much to risk. And I'm totally opposed to it. And then also I had read the gender impact statement that was made by, I believe her name is Cara Jabola. It was done last month. And there's so many outline things in there that is so scary. And we just recently in Kapolei had a child that was trying to be picked up by an unknown woman. So that really scares me. With that in mind, for me, it doesn't matter how much money the casino would have made. If we lose just one life because of it, it's not worth it.
Mr. Paris, I know that you're also a beneficiary and you have a different view along with the Prince Kuhio Hawaiian Civic Club. What's your take?
Aloha mai ka mokopuni nui o ke awe hiki I iha o Kaihalelani o Anthony Makana Paris ko ui noa. Noho mai au I Kapolei and mai nanakuli mai au ku'u one hanau. Aloha everyone. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here with illustrious Senators Kurt Favela, Senator Mailishi Mopukoro, Anakala, and Anake Mokihana, and Brother Tyler Yokepa Gomes. For me, the position that I have right now is one of opportunity, of hope, of aloha, trying to see how we can move forward together. During the centennial celebration of the Hawaiian Home Commission Act year, it's a time to huliao, to rest, to contemplate, to consider how best to move forward. And I can relate very much to what Auntie Mokihana was saying, because I too come from a family that was raised in gambling. I actually didn't know gambling was illegal until my teenage years, because it was so normative. Going to chicken fights, I learned basically how to do multiplication by playing pipito and paiute and poker. It's like with all of the anakes and aunties, the tatas and nanas, it's like that environment was a community for me. It was like with the food and the ambiance. But I knew something was a little bit fishy when the SWAT would come and everybody would flee. So my take on the exploration of limited gambling on Hawaiian homelands right now is that it's timely. For 100 years, our ancestors, our predecessors has done what they could with what they had in order to move the mission forward to house Native Hawaiians to the betterment of Hawaii. And right now, like my generation, including Brother Yokepa Gomes, was prepared by Auntie Mokihana, Senator Kurt Favela, Senator Mailishi Bukora, and their contemporaries and others to gain the knowledge and pala from Western academies to come back home and figure out creative solutions to move forward. And that's what I want to discuss. That's what this opportunity is for us. How do we house our people? Exploring limiting gambling is something that actually is helpful at this time. We have 100 years of information to look back on, to see, and to look at best practices. But I agree with Senator Favela. In some ways, a little bit rushed, because if we can go together in one heart, we have to go slow and bring everybody along. If auntie and uncle don't feel comfortable with it, it's like hard for them to make something different. So it's contingent upon the younger generations to actually reach up to explain why you all have prepared us with degrees, with pala, with knowledge and wisdom from you all to actually chart the path forward. And that's why I'm so excited to be here to continue this discussion during this huliao. Mahalo.
Mr. Gomes, what kind of a difference would this make in terms of the DHHL budget? What kind of an impact would it have, and what would it do to move people off of the list and actually onto parcels?
So right now we're able to develop new lands, lots, and build houses using CIP funds, which comes from the legislature. And maybe we get 20 to 30 million on average per year to solve a problem that is 28,000 families long. We know that it'll probably cost the department $4.5 billion alone for just sewer, water, and electric for all of those lots. And we don't get at $20 million a year, right? You've got a little bit of a math problem. So when we looked at, I guess, other states and other markets that have introduced casinos, we were, I guess, experts sort of leaned into the most conservative estimate so as not to overpromise. And it could have looked like something as low as 30 million annually to add to our budget. To answer Senator Pavella's question, Kamakana Ali'i only generates $5 million a year. We'd need 6 more Kamakana Ali'is just to match what the worst case scenario of the casino can do. And if we're concerned about, the footprint of how much of our lands are going towards commercial endeavors, 6 more Kamakana Ali'is is almost worse than one potential facility that could generate that kind of funds. To be on the other end of the spectrum, to be completely honest with where we're at, there are certain institutions that generate $1 billion in revenue every single year from their gaming facilities. And so there's a wide range, and that's totally dependent on where you put it, which is why I think the bill was actually introduced to say on Oʻahu, because we heard that there were concerns about Kapolei. It gave the commission the opportunity to acquire other lands that might be in an area that's more suitable. And, I think that's sort of the beauty of the legislative process is we can amend the bills to add in language that helps us solve the problems that we're addressing with them versus advocating for killing the bill simply because there are technical or procedural or, serious concerns. There are ways to address that. And lastly, Auntie Mokiana, I appreciate you sharing the story about your ohana, and I think that's a very real consideration. Part of the problem is this state has contributed $0 to assisting families who struggle with gambling addiction. We know that it occurs here. 2.2% of our residents have a gambling problem, and this state puts $0 every single year towards helping those people. And so, I think this is a culmination of a lot of issues and a lot of emotions. But for us, that promise of potentially, at the very minimum, doubling what we get in CIP, that could have doubled what we produce every single year, right? At the current rate, it'll take us 182 years to clear the wait list. That's unacceptable. That pains me to say that out loud. So if I can shave even 20 years off of that, or 90, or 180, I mean, these are real things that I think we have to consider.
Senator Favela, we have a question here from Dave in Makakilo. He says, why can't we have other forms of gambling like a lottery or bingo? Is there any room for gaming of any kind, or are you opposed to it completely?
Well, I'm not opposed because I'm not sure if lottery is considered to be gaming. I looked it up. It's not considered to be gaming. Bingo is not considered to be gaming. I know it's being thrown around as that. And I did support education committee in their pursuit in a state lottery for education. And that's the reason why when Senator Miley told me about her bill, it was already too late for me to not support it. But because I already had support Senator Kadani's lower education bill to help teachers raise money to a state lottery and going forth from there. So I'm not against the idea of the state lottery, but I am against the idea that we need a gaming license to have the commissioners make a decision that what kind of gaming they're going to have. Horse racing is not a gaming. I never seen it as a gaming. I talked to guys who have horse racing in their state. It's horse racing. So gaming comes with games like casino games, slot machines, a crap table. That is gaming, and that's the way the gaming license go. Guys who have horse racing in their state and they just do horse racing, they don't have a gaming license. And people that do bingo on the military base, the military does not have a gaming license to do bingo. So by saying that and putting that together, that's to me what even made it more disturbing that we need a gaming license to do these things. So if they took a gaming and took the gaming all out and just said that we was going to do just bingo, and do something with virtual bingo, I brought this up. They do virtual computer bingo. Everything is computerized now. You get your credit card and you buy as much cards as you want. 100% proceeds could go to Hawaiian Homes. But they didn't address it like that. It was this or this or this or not. And that's the reason why the way they presented it, again, To me, it was rushed, and the decision was made, and I had to stick to what I had already had foretold in the beginning. So we talk about $30 million that this casino could bring in, or even $1 billion that is being thrown out. Hawaii spends $3 million a year in Vegas. That's what was brought up, right? How are we going to go from 3 million to 30 million when we can't even bring tourists back to its regular size? And even when tourists was great, Kamakanali was hurting because only locals go there. So unless they're going to find a place that 100% tourists is only going to come to Hawaii to gamble, which you know that's not true. So the statistics is wrong. Hawaii people don't gamble as much as all the other places. They go to Vegas, $3 million a year, not 30. Then you get tourists to come here to surf, to see our ocean, to see our beauty, go to luau's, not to come to a casino because most of them have casinos in their state. So why would they come all the way down here and spend their money on casinos because they say we're going to get 30 million?
Senator
I don't believe
Shimabukuro,
that.
let me hear your response to that. Let's have you jump in there.
Well, I guess, I guess that's I think what was the beauty of the amendments, is that the bill as amended would not require only casino. It could have been bingo, lottery, horse racing, that kind of thing. And I think what I thought was really compelling too is we had a Professor Cho testify, and he specializes in gambling studies. And he used the example of Singapore, Vancouver, and other places. And Singapore, like us, was really having trouble financially, and they very successfully implemented casinos, and actually improved social outcomes in their society. And they made these resorts similar to what was in the bill. And for them, what they do is they make the casino a very tiny portion of the resorts, like less than 5% of the footprint. So you barely know it's there, but yet it's the major income generator of the two different resorts they have. And they also charge a pretty decent fee for Singapore residents to use the casino. And so they do these different methods, and they've at least there seen that it's worked in terms of dramatically improving their economy and at the same time improving social outcomes. So if done right, it possibly could hopefully have beneficial impacts as well as the needed financial impacts.
Could I jump in there?
Of course.
On that? Yeah, I think one thing that needs to be mentioned, particularly about lottery and bingo, is that for all intents and purposes, they're far more predatory and regressive practices, because who's going to play a lottery and bingo? It's going to be your local residents. Tourists are absolutely not going to come here to play a lottery or bingo. Tourists will come here to game, right? There are prevalent studies that show that particularly tourists from Asia, including Japan, Singapore, Macau, and Hong Kong, are all interested in destination gaming. And so you absolutely can cater an industry to those audiences. If you were to do a lottery or bingo, it's going to be our neighbors playing that, not the tourists. And as far as, like I said, the beauty of the legislative process is we could amend the bill. The definition of gaming, I think, as it was, is very broad, and it includes all games of chance. If you ask some people in the study of gaming, they'll tell you that horse racing, lottery, and bingo are all gaming, not because you have to play a game to play them, it's because they are considered a game of chance. You are betting on the chance that you may win or you may lose. But we could easily change the definition to better suit the concerns of the legislators versus killing the bill.
Mrs. Wa'akamoto, I want to bring in this comment from Facebook. Kealoha says, I am for gambling. Gambling is already here in Hawaii. Just look at the news. A gambling ring is busted almost every day. To not make money off of it is blindsided. You gave the example of your family. What about the argument of bringing this into the light, that if this is regulated in some form, then situations like the one that you described would be less likely to happen?
I keep thinking back to the gender impact statement that I had that I had read last month by that person. And I just don't see how we can get around it. I know there's a lot of illegal gambling places. We had one right on a homestead, one on another homestead, right? And when I listen to people talk about it, like the neighbors are scared. I understand what's going on with Hawaiian Homelands and the need to put people on the land. My waiting was 51 years because I succeeded my father's application from the date he put it in. He died on the list. I was his successor. And I know that revenues need to be made. I just feel like the better way is to push the legislatures because really they're supposed to be funding Department of Hawaiian Homelands. That's my understanding. But I was told also that the previous director didn't really push for the legislatures to do that. So I think somehow we as beneficiaries need to hold Department of Hawaiian Homelands responsible to push along with us, the legislature, so that they can adequately fund us, so that we don't have to go get a casino. I'm just not for it at all.
Mr. Paris, I saw you nodding there. I know that you disagree on the issue of gaming, but I think that you might have some common ground here.
Absolutely. When I listen to the senators and Brother Tyler and Auntie Mokihana speak, what I'm hearing is that there is a desire to help our community and to do it in a pono way.
Yes.
And that's what this discussion is about. Auntie Mokihana, I'm with you. Ka ko'o. Let's hold the Department of Hawaiian Homelands accountable and the state legislature and the federal government for the land that was taken from our people over 100 years ago. Well, it's like, this is our aina. This is our intergenerational wealth. And that's where I see the opportunity, right? Other families pass on their wealth from one person and one family head to the next. For Native Hawaiians, our collective wealth comes through our trusts, including the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and OHA. And also our li'is put up the Bishop Estate, Queen Emma's Trust, and the others. We decided to hold our resources collectively. So now 100 years later is our opportunity to leverage those trusts to grow our community in better ways. So I'm with you. It's like we should hold them accountable, but it's not the department's fault alone. But then again, Brother Tyler, I know you guys are doing awesome jobs now, but there's been things that have been whack before from the department, right? 100%. And most of the kupuna I talk to, they're talking to me about mo'olelos from 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 60 years ago, when they did this and that. And now I'm like, man, my tutu's passed away on the wait list. My makua is on all the wait lists. My aunties and uncles on the wait list. My cousins on the wait list. Maybe some of our family got houses. I was like, and that's awesome because that's our intergenerational wealth. But the part is we all don't have equal access. But I can say for a fact that the trust has helped me. I've lived over a third of my life on homelands in Papakolea and Nanakuli with different families. And I wasn't a lisi and wasn't my makua directly either, was aunties, uncles that would help us live on the land with them so that I could have a chance. So now we go off, they send me for education on the East Coast, on the West Coast, and back over here with Brother at William S. Richardson School of Law for figure out what for do next steps. It's like, the thing is, Native Hawaiians have 3 trustees, the federal government, the state government, and OHA. And Kalamai, OHA and DHHL. They're all trustees, 4 trustees of our assets. And it's like parents arguing with their grandparents about what to do with our assets. We the generation now going, how are we gonna afford one home? When I grew up, houses on Oʻahu cost $150,000. Today, that's one down payment. That means 5 lifetimes worth of work in order to get one hale for one family today. Something is wrong.
Well, Senator,
that's what is coming to light. Something is wrong, and we have a chance to actually have a conversation to move forward to righting that wrong. Mahalo.
Senator Shimabukuro, the state legislature, as we know, is facing a budget shortfall. The state is of $1.4 billion or perhaps more, depending on where you look. Certainly, it doesn't have $4.5 billion that Mr. Gomes laid out, which is the need for the department. So absent gaming, what are the options for funding this department?
Yeah, well, it's tough. We were able to pass out SB 86 on Tuesday. And it actually picks up on an idea that DHHL had floated to the commission prior, which is medical marijuana dispensaries. And right now, in previous legislation, we authorized 8 dispensaries for the state. This SB 86 would allow DHHL 8 additional dispensaries to be run, by beneficiaries, on Hawaiian Homelands is what I understand, what's written. So I know it's not going to generate the same types of revenue that the casino would have, but it's at least something that's moving. There are other, as Senator Favela mentioned, there's SBs, there's two casino bills, SB 816 and SB 853 that are, they're both lottery bills that are, just talking about statewide lotteries. So, and these are all the types of things we're going to have to do because every department, not just DHHL, is going to suffer because of the COVID. We're in dire straits right now. And so that's why I really applauded that the Hawaiian Homes Commission was trying to find ways to really diversify our economy. So we're desperately trying to ways to diversify.
Senator Favela, we have a question from Eva Beach for you, which is, aside from gaming, what solution does Senator Favela have for the current housing crisis? What do you think of the marijuana proposal? And beyond that, is there something else that you would propose to generate funding?
Well, first of all, we should liquidate all the assets that the University of Hawaii has on ceded land and public trust land. Have that be turned back either to Hawaiian Homes or the state of Hawaii to make affordable rentals that is not for Hawaiians, so it can generate money to build homes on Hawaiian homeland. We have a lot of land that belongs to Hawaiian homeland, to DHHL, but it belongs to the University of Hawaii. University of Hawaii in Manoa should downsize. They don't have enough students. They don't take care of the Hawaiian students there. They do not even justify using the ceded lands, and when they do projects, they make sure that they don't do any revenues on ceded lands because they got to give a portion to OHA. And then OHA doesn't give their fair share. To me, OHA should be giving a lot of more money and more attention to Hawaiian homeland. And then another one is Mauna Kea. Mauna Kea been desecrated for 50 years, mismanaged by the University of Hawaii. Give that to some Hawaiian culturing, maybe Hawaiian Homes, to go ahead and monitor and run Mauna Kea as an educational aspect. But there's a lot of land out there that don't belong back to the Hawaiians. Same like Makana said. We have a lot of land out there that we can diversify, either lease some long-term leasing and licensing, because that's what Hawaiian Homes does. That's being used by the University of Hawaii, that I think they're looking into renting and leasing on part of those properties, but it should come back to the revenue to the Hawaiian people. And that's how you can start generating some of the money. The leases and the licenses that they have now, stop charging fair market value. Stop giving breaks, stop giving cheaper prices for their land. They gotta value that land and get fair market value for it. And that's how they're gonna do it.
Mr. Gomes, is that an option? Is it an option to liquidate that land, or to liquidate those assets and essentially take them back from UH and others?
Yeah, I mean, that's an option. That can be an option. We just got to work legislatively and do it. They're not doing anything. And the university is so down in student. Hard bodies, they don't have. West Oʻahu has the most enrollment. But again, we're funneling state legislating money. We get professors out there, okay, getting 500,000, and they don't even teach a class. They don't even teach a class. But that money would go in the state, and the state could give that to Hawaiian Homes and other departments.
Well, Senator
Favela, a
Favela,
lot of money at the university.
I want to get Mr. Gomes' take on that. Can you give us? Is that a realistic option?
Well, I mean, if it's going to be proceeds from ceded lands, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs is absolutely going to have an opinion about where that money should go. So I'm not really in a position to speak today on whether or not we should be challenging the Office of Hawaiian Affairs on what's owed to them from the ceded lands. That said, anything that brings additional responsibility to the department, like managing Mauna Kea, for example, that's more resources we need, right? Because that's got costs and employee costs that come with it. If I'm being completely honest, I have maybe 130 staff right now managing what amounts to a small municipality. I mean, the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, whether people see it that way or not, is a small city. We are a bank. We are an electric utility in some cases. We are a water utility. We manage sewer, roads, infrastructure. We do housing. We respond to community and public safety, and we're understaffed there too. And our communities deserve to live in safe communities. But how am I supposed to do that with two staffers for the entire state to be there for the public safety for the entire state? We are doing commercial land management. We are constructing homes. I mean, we are doing all and so much more, including in areas of conservation, because let's not forget that the 200,000 acres we were given, the vast majority of that is conservation land that I can't put homes on. You know, we're running a really, really big operation on the thinnest of budget. And I'm not saying Senator Vivella's idea is bad. What I'm saying is what people don't realize is the more responsibilities we get, that's the thinner, you know, our resources go, because at the end of the day, the public perception is I've still got to build 28,000 homes, but it's so much bigger than that. I mean, we're giving out loans. The level at which this department does what is essentially the responsibilities of multiple state departments for a population, or for the indigenous population, we absolutely deserve so much more money to get that done. I said this the other day and I'll say it again. When we talk about the affordable housing crisis, and we talk about the nearly 22,000 unit shortage on Oʻahu alone for affordable housing statewide, the discussion starts in the hundreds of millions of dollars. When we talk about the affordable housing crisis on Hawaiian homelands, and I need to deliver 28,000 units, which is bigger than Oʻahu's shortage, the discussion starts at $20 to $30 million a year. Where's the parity? And you know, we've got to keep advocating for more money. I'm here doing it. Auntie Mokehana, actually the last director, she's the one who took the state to court and fought to get sufficient sums. So it may not have been that director, but
it was the prior one. It was the one before.
I'm a total nerd, and I'll admit that. And I spend a lot of my free time in our library here in the office. As you can tell, I haven't left the office yet. And I read through these annual reports that go back 100 years now. And every single year, every chairman in the last 100 years has said, we're not getting enough funding. It's borderline criminal, and we don't have a lot of resources to get this job done. And if anything comes out of, you know, this gaming bill being deferred, Yunji, it's that we've got a whole bunch of Native Hawaiians who are now equipped to have a discussion about what the need is for the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. And everybody, I hope, is on the same page that we absolutely need to be demanding more funding so we can do this job right.
Mr. Paris, I see you nodding, and also we have Marilyn from Waianae writing in. How does the panel feel about offshore gambling? Could that be an option? You know, in other municipalities, you have riverboats, you have things like that. Would it feel better for some, do you think, if you did it on a boat as opposed to on the land?
I mean,
We'll start with Mr. Paris.
we looked into this, so I'm happy to speak on it, but I just gave a wild rant. But offshore gaming is much more problematic than it does solve the problem, in large part because the square footage is so small. You actually have, I mean, the costs do not get outweighed by the revenue benefit. It's much smaller. And so I think bottom line, we didn't consider offshore because it just, the cost, the revenue couldn't justify the cost at that scale.
And Mr. Paris, I saw you nodding when Mr. Gomes was speaking earlier. Tell us what you're thinking right now.
I too think that offshore gambling would be like putting a Band-Aid on top of something that needs a tourniquet because it got cut off. It's like, that's how massive the wound is. So that's the reason why I'm a proponent for exploring, well, the option for limited gaming on Hawaiian homelands with an integrated resort. Because an integrated resort, depending on profile, you're talking about 15% of the footprint is casino, and the rest of it is retail spaces, conference rooms. It's like ballrooms, dining facilities, amusement parks. It's an entertainment center with casino gambling as a draw. It's like, but it's not the focus. It's just an anchor, like an anchor tenant, like Long's Drugs at the nearest shopping complex. It's like, what it does in the short term is that it provides hundreds of construction jobs. And this process for construction development on Oahu probably gonna take 4 or 6 years to actually go through at best, maybe 8, especially if somebody ends up suing because we never do something right in the EIS or something else. So maybe 10 years. But it's gonna go through a beneficiary consultation process with the Hawaiian Homelands Office. If they have the ability to move forward, it'll take probably another couple of years. So you're looking at a horizon of like 10 to 12 years before you start seeing funding come in. But in the meantime, it's like you're getting people to work. You're having an appropriate conversation. And ultimately, 12 years from now, we could actually have thousands of our neighbors no longer driving from Makaha, Waianae, Nanakuli, all the way to Waikiki to go and do hospitality work, but straight to Kapolei, stop there and work there. Because an integrated resort can provide 2,000 to 6,000 jobs, easy, with that kind of 80-acre footprint.
Mrs. Wa'akumoto, what do you think?
Well, I was thinking if they do it offshore, I'd be happy with that one. It's not close to home. It's not close to me. It'd take more effort for them to bring crime into my neighborhood. But that was just my thought.
Yeah, and I would love for you to give us a little bit more perspective. I know that you said that your family had waited decades. Tell us a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, we are talking about families who have a right to this land. Tell us about that wait and the impact that it had on your family.
So, so I had put in for myself, but my father's application was way back, and then he finally just decided I'm not able to get a place, even if they offer it to me, because his name has come up a few times. But you can have two people working minimum wage jobs; they still cannot qualify for that loan to get that mortgage. It's just out there. So I got the place, but 51 years—that's a long time, and so. Even when I put in, had I been able to get a house maybe within 5 or 10 years for my children growing up, we wouldn't have had to move so many times because I was a single parent for many number of years. I raised my children by myself due to the death of their father. But when there's just one income, even my name had come up too, but I wasn't able at that time to qualify for the mortgage. So I just have to keep moving in my neighborhood wherever, with the rent was cheaper. It does impact families because having a home is very important. Someplace the kids can say, that's my house, have a place to go home to. Or not my address in Hau'ula over here, and then next week, next month my address is in Laie and stuff. It does something, to families. And I just think the wait is too long, and yet I'm not blaming anybody because I understand there's a problem. And I'm sure everybody's here trying to do their best to help people. But what I want to say is what's kind of close to my heart right now is because of the cost of living in Hawaii, and none of my children own their own homes. My youngest boy moved to Oregon 10 years ago, took his 5 kids. He said, I can't live in Hawaii. It's just too expensive. I can't get my own home, Mom. So he went there. And then one of my daughters is saying she's planning to leave this summer with her children, so that's like 5, 4, that's 9 mo'opuna of mine that got to go out of Hawaii, which is really sad, I think if families had a home, at least they can work from there, I mean, we have our own house, we don't have to leave, we work together, we put together, we pay the mortgage, we have some place to live. But when you got to pay $2,000-3,000 rent out there to house a family of maybe 5, it's hard with Hawaii's economy and with the cost of living. So having to wait so long, I mean, my neighbors right around me, there's several of them that are older also. So I imagine that they've been on a wait list for a while. So, but it would be nice if they could move that wait list along, but I understand that it's problematic right now.
Senator Favela, it's been said that our biggest export in Hawaii is our middle class, that we lose so many people, like she was talking about her own children moving to the mainland. If it's not gaming, what is a better way to raise revenue so that more people can get onto parcels?
See, we had this discussion many of times on talking about raising revenue. We can diversify. We never looked into the option of hemp. Hemp been talked about for the last 10 plus years. And then diversifying and making sure that we are not only sustainable with our agriculture going forward and our technology and just moving our technology and our ability to bring in outside companies to come in and buy in. And just like how she was saying, it's so expensive here, and no companies want to come into business here. So we got to, as legislators and people of Hawaii, kind of diversify in kind of generating our own kind of funding and opportunity going there. And one of the biggest ones that we're not capitalizing on, I'm going to bring this up again, is hemp. Hemp was around a long time. Ford company made a car of hemp, ran by hemp. We have hemp clothes now. We have a lot of stuff. We can have a hemp factory right here, out here in Kahimohala, where they're growing all the corn and everything else. It's all ag land. But nobody seems to really push that as an economic and generating, or even energy, is one of the biggest things that nobody is exploring. So, Hawaiian homes have a lot of land that they said they can't put people on. Well, that's something that they should explore. Having their own hemp factory and growing hemp and diversifying in hemp. Other states and cities that are doing hemp, they're doing fine. And that's one of the things in agriculture. Tourism will come when they come, but we gotta diversify because we cannot hit and have another coronavirus. You're not gonna survive. Or
Mr. Gomes, what about those proposals, perhaps hemp or different ag on some of those lands, or what Senator Shimabukuro was talking about with dispensaries? What are some other mechanisms that you're looking at right now if this is in fact dead?
In the case of the medical marijuana dispensaries, that was something that we had taken to our commission, and they did not approve as part of the legislative package. Some of the concerns there, I think, have in large part to do with the current federal status of marijuana. And as recipients of federal funds, there may be some questions there. But we at least pursued the idea. We just didn't get the green light. So I think this administration is open to considering anything that's going to generate revenue. I can't speak to what the hemp industry generates. I don't have the background there. But you also have to consider, we do have limited land holdings, right? And so every acre that we use for agricultural diversification, that might be 1, 2, 10, 50 less agricultural lots we could give because we've got to grow the hemp to generate the revenue to build the homes. And so that's sort of the trade-off is we don't necessarily have unlimited land holdings either.
Okay. Mr. Paris, I want to get to you. Mrs. Wakamoto shared her family's story. Would you share a little bit of yours as well in terms of what it's like to wait so long for those parcels?
Well, my family has been waiting for quite a while. Most of my direct people that I've descended from has not received Hawaiian homelands. But the beauty of Ohana in Hawaii is that we're able to benefit from waiting sometimes with aunties and uncles and others that currently have homeland lots. And that's the hidden housing crisis in Hawaii. Like Brother Tyler was saying earlier, that there's the need for 22 housing units on Oʻahu alone. Across the state, when you look at the DBED studies, you can see that we need, by 2040, 50,000 housing units. But the question begs you, it's like, if Hawaiian homelands need 28,000 people on the wait list, you 22,000 on Oʻahu, 50,000 across the state, where are all these people? They're somewhere. They're either overstaffed in homes already, particularly on Hawaiian homelands, or they're houseless. It's like, and that's the thing that disturbs me the most. As we go into this new year, facing a COVID pandemic that's still rearing its head. Over 500,000 UI claims were given to the state last year. Unemployment insurance claims, people that went out of work. It's like we have high record of unemployment levels right now. People were paycheck to paycheck before, but now people are on the verge of actually having to get evicted from their homes. The only reason why they're not evicted is because of the presidential and gubernatorial proclamations stemming those evictions. Hawaii has a housing crisis. For Native Hawaiians, it's been going on for 100 years, but for the entire state, it's the same. Because when people are saying DHHL is a Native Hawaiian issue, that is part of the truth. But the more holistic point of it is a Native Hawaiian issue, but it's a Hawaii issue. And the reason why is because every Native Hawaiian family is a local family. And Native Hawaiians will marry into every other ethnicity on the face of the planet. It's like we have Chinese, Japanese, Korean Hawaiians, all local. So with those 28,000 units that Tyler and others are trying to build with the support of Senator Maile and Senator Kurt Fabella with their innovative ideas, it's like we're putting local families into homes. My family, we're still waiting. But I was blessed to actually work with my mom and dad and my siblings in order to actually purchase a home off of homelands. It's like, well, we had to save and scrape together, as Auntie Mokihana said. My parents, Auntie, told me, why you come back home, poor boy? Stay away, more easy. My salary would be twice as much somewhere else. And I would have buying power and be able to retire and have my children actually enjoy certain things more. But as Auntie Mokihana said, you cannot replace the aloha aina. You cannot replace the ohana. You cannot replace those things of your onehana, of this place where you actually grow up. And that's what we all are here trying to actually find a way for.
Well, I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, there is a lot of unity on this panel in terms of wanting to go forward. So, Senator Shimabukuro, where do we go from here?
You know, well, I think there's a lot of hope. I think DHHL is really thinking outside the box. They have plans to do multifamily housing, which, you know, and just like others have shared, I've witnessed so many friends and coworkers, family that their names come up on the wait list and then tragically they can't afford the mortgage. And so I'm really applaud that DHHL is being creative now. They're looking at rather than single family homes, making multifamily, you know, so they're looking at putting condominiums, you know, at the Bolodrome site, the former Ula Kikui site in Maili, and some former KS land. They're also going to do some apartments. And, you know, while it's not, you know, as nice or as big as a single family home might be, it might be more affordable. And so the legislature wants to support DHHL in these endeavors and, you know, find ways that a condominium could qualify as helping someone get off the wait list. Because I think right now there are questions as to whether that would be the same. And so supporting them in that way, you know, some constituents have even suggested other ways, you know, legalizing fireworks. It might be a way to, you know, some states have actually done that. You know, and as we've seen in Hawaii, I mean, you know, people are surprised to know that fireworks were actually banned about almost 10 years ago. You would never guess that from looking at how proliferation they are. And so I actually have a bill that would legalize them for limited only on 4th of July and New Year's Eve. And then the tax revenue obviously would then go to support DHHL and the other departments. And there's also a surcharge for the first responders. So trying to think outside the box, you know, how can we support our departments? And so, you know, these are just some of the things that we're all investigating.
We only have a few more minutes. Mr. Gomes, where do we go from here?
You know, every year the department comes to the budget with over $100 million in possible projects. And you know by now from my speech that, you know, we're getting 20 to 30 million, which means every year we have the painful task of telling communities, your community is not up this year. Your project is going to get the chop because we just can't afford to do them all. And I think from here on out, if we can encourage beneficiaries to reach out to their legislators and say, what are you doing? What can we expect from you to help get me off the wait list? What is your solution? Why is that number not bigger? Why is our community not getting a homestead this year? I think that's the kind of messaging we need to go for. You know, I think there's ideas, but we've had 100 years for ideas and I'm still not seeing solutions. And I think until that happens, we've just got to be adamant about the need for adequate funding for this department. And as far as the department is concerned, I think we've proven that we're willing to step way outside of the box. That invites controversy, but it also invites educated and sometimes heated discussion that's useful and beneficial. And even though it's not our kuleana to come up with the funds for this department, we're going to keep trying so long as we need it, because if it's not going to come from anyone else, we're going to do what 100 years of Native Hawaiians have done before us and just make it work and make do with what we have, because that's been what's been expected of our people. The program itself was an expectation we would make do. That's why they gave us 200,000 acres of land that were mostly unusable. They just figured we'd make do. And I think, at least for me and my generation, I'm not comfortable sitting and doing nothing. So I think what our beneficiaries can expect from this department is a continued commitment to moving that list as best we can. And it may take a little while, but you can also expect fresh ideas. You can expect tireless advocacy on behalf of all our beneficiaries. And, you know, we're not going to give up on this.
We have less than a minute left. Mrs. Komodo, I want to give you the last word tonight. What's your final thought?
Well, I have a better understanding of some things just listening to, you folks tonight. I think um, we need to get more involved as beneficiaries in this push to um, the legislatures that they need to help us get our people on the land because, we're going to have, um, we just need to get our people on the land. And so, whatever it takes, um, I'm going to be more proactive in the involvement. I may not push for that casino, but I'll probably, have other things that I'll think about, like even that hemp, a lot of people use it now, and it's medicinal. And I think something like that would be something that I would probably support.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much for your wisdom tonight. Thank you so much to our panel. We thank our guests, Democratic State Senator Maile Shimabukuro, Republican State Senator Kurt Favela, Department of Hawaiian Homelands Deputy Director Tyler Gomes, and beneficiaries Mokihana Wa'akomoda and Anthony Makana Paris. Next week, right here on Insights, another controversial issue at the state legislature, legalizing recreational marijuana. We'll hear from both sides of that debate. Please do join us then. I'm Yanji Denise for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Aloha.